Hi, I'm Howard Solomon, editor of IT World Canada. There's a never-ending increase in attacks on networks as hackers find new exploits. I'm here with Richard Henderson of Fortinet to ask, is network security broken?
Well, thanks for having me here, Howard. It's great to talk to you. My opinion is network security isn't really broken per se. I think we have to go a long way yet to really make sure customers feel and businesses feel truly secure on the internet. I think over the last 10 years or so, we've started to make some serious inroads as to how companies view network security as a necessary expense in their businesses. But the flip side of that coin is I don't think we're far enough. 20 years ago, companies thought of IT in general as a needed expense, much like how an accounting department and an HR department was just an expense in doing business. IT was off for a long time, looked at as just another expense. As the internet has evolved over the last 10 years or so and companies have taken their businesses online, they've started to, for the most part, figure out ways to monetize their IT systems and use them as revenue generating sources of business as opposed to expenses. IT security hasn't made that transition to being seen as revenue protection or revenue generation. It's still seen as an expense. But when you start to consider the financial implications and reputation impacts of something like an attack or a data breach, all of a sudden spending some money on IT security doesn't really seem like an unwise decision. You look at, for example, a couple years ago, the TJ Maxx attack, which impacted Winners here in Canada. We saw that thousands upon thousands of credit card numbers, transaction data, all sorts of personally identifiable information was stolen, and the financial impact to their reputation was probably incalculable. So when you look at it from that perspective, what are the potential costs to my company if I am the victim of an attack or a data breach? Spending a little bit more money on IT security doesn't really seem like a silly decision.
What are organizations doing wrong?
Well, first and foremost, there's really two things that they're doing, what I think they're doing wrong. One is they're not really doing a great job educating their users as to how to notice the signs of a potential attack or notice the signs of something not necessarily being exactly right. So the second part of this is customers are and businesses are not doing a good enough job keeping their systems up to date with relative expediency. We often find companies aren't patching their machines to the latest security patches, sometimes weeks, if not months after a Patch Tuesday has occurred or a hot Java update's come out or there's a new PDF exploit that's being actively exploited in the wild in vulnerability kits or exploit kits by cyber criminals. They're not doing a very good job in deploying these patches to their desktop systems and their server infrastructure with any sort of relative urgency. We continue to see systems, for example, some of the things I've looked at, I've found Apache servers online that are 16 patches out of date, and there are a significant list of known vulnerabilities that anybody with the most basic of hacking skills could use to their advantage. We find things that are still vulnerable to SQL injection attacks, you name it. So businesses aren't doing enough to make sure they keep their systems properly patched and updated as soon as possible. Now, I understand that as a business, you don't want to compromise your internal intelligence systems or your internal business systems that you have developed. Downtime is not acceptable. But what's the financial impact of an attack? Delaying a patch for months while you wait for somebody in QA to determine that this isn't going to affect our internal systems probably isn't good enough anymore, especially when attackers and cyber criminals have done very well in the last few years at rolling these exploits into their exploit kits with some relatively ferocious speed.
One expert I've talked to has said organizations should spend more time on protecting data rather than protecting the network. What do you think?
Well, it's a really good point, and it's an interesting philosophy that I think has some merit. At the very least, they're paying some heed to security in some fashion. Ultimately, data probably is the most valuable resource that a company has, and make sure your data is secure and it is safe from exfiltration from your network, and that it's properly encrypted, especially things like credit card information, transaction data. But it really isn't enough. When we look at cases, last year with the Saudi Aramco attack, where 20,000 desktops were wiped out because of a malware attack that has been attributed to Iran. Well, we don't know for sure if it was Iran, but probably. The South Korea attacks as recently as last week and a few months ago, the wiper attacks that hit there. The financial impact to a business for cleaning up one of these incidents is rather staggering. When you have to spend 2 hours on every single desktop for someone in your admin team to go in and re-image that thing and set up all your systems and make sure everything works again, and maybe some of these desktops had some very specific kludges that needed to be put in place to make sure everything worked with all your systems. You're talking about probably thousands of dollars per user to be able to get things back up and running. And then on top of that, there's the business continuity that you've lost because your employees can't work. So they need to expand just thinking about data because all of these things do have an impact on the bottom line and keeping your business going. But if you're just going to focus on one thing, yes, data probably is a wise choice.
Richard, thanks very much for this advice.
Well, it was a pleasure.
All of this begs the question, is your organization doing enough to protect itself? For IT World Canada, I'm Howard Solomon.